It is a fun. I think it's a fun day. I think we have a couple of things. One that has just presented itself in the last hour or so since I arrived here at Radio City for today's show. The other involves it's all hockey, by the way. We'll talk to Sal at 4 o'clock. There's a deadline for franchise tags, not that pertains to the Bills, but there's some news in the league and some players that aren't being tagged. Trey Hendrickson maybe at the top of the list that could be of interest at a position of need for the Bills. So we will get some football. We'll get a football quota in with Sal. But today is a super fun day, I think, for hockey fans and Sabres fans here in Western New York and even Southern Ontario if you're still out there. We've got a game, first game in almost a month. At home, so it's been a while with the Olympic break mixed in there. We know the gold medal won by Tage Thompson. The Vegas Golden Knights are here. Jack Eichel, former Sabres captain, key player on Team USA, also expected to be prominently featured in a pregame ceremony along with his teammate Noah Hannafin from the Vegas Golden Knights. And so we've got like the relationship between a former star player who eventually burned bridges, napalm bombs, the whole thing, just get me out of here. And Jack Eichel eventually did get out of here. And so that relationship is always interesting to me. Some years have passed. The Sabres are good again, which I'll get to in a moment, which I think is the kind of thing that can soften even the hardest of hearts when it comes to a player who left under the circumstances that Jack Eichel left in. But that is going to have to that was going to lead today's show until, again, about an hour ago when I rolled in here to Radio City, and the first thing I saw when I logged in was some reporting from one of the bigwigs in hockey circles, Darren Dreger, saying that the Sabres and the Blues, like it's hot and heavy right now. And I want to point out that an hour has gone by since he tweeted that, and we haven't gotten any more traction, any more word that things are advancing. Oftentimes, if you're a real regular, like psycho, I mean that as a compliment, listener of this show, if it can be taken that way. If you're someone who listens a lot, you know that Mike and I share a take about these big NHL reporters, how usually you get one or two of them leaking out that something is close to happening, and then like magic within like 15 or 20 minutes, it happens, right? That doesn't appear to be the case when it comes to the Sabres and Robert Thomas. But when I got here, I saw a tweet from Darren Dreger saying, like, it's kind of a buyer's market, and you've got some new teams involved, one of them being the Sabres, who are in the buyer's market, and they're hot and heavy after Robert Thomas, a number one center from the St. Louis Blues. Not a player that I've spent a lot of time prior to an hour ago thinking about, because I didn't really feel like a player with that contract. He's got, I think, 5 more years at $8 million. He's basically got Josh Norris's contract, is what he's got. And he plays the same position. Point-a-game player, 200-foot player, excellent player. Still pretty young, 26, I think, is his age. So really cool idea, but not something I thought the Sabres would go shopping for. If indeed they are shopping for it. I mean, I believe they're at least looking at it. I don't think Darren Dreger would be tweeting this sort of thing for his health. Chris Johnston, another of the big guys. There's your tandem. One from TSN, one affiliated with Sportsnet, I believe is where Chris Johnston works. He said the Sabres are offering or looking to meet the asking price of 3. I don't know if this is the Blues asking price, but I'm wording it sloppily. That the Sabres are working toward a package that is the equivalent of 3 first-rounders. So what that means is probably a first-round pick, like in the draft coming up, a future draft this year or next, and players who would be equated to being still holding first-round value. That could mean former first-round picks. That could mean players who weren't first-round picks or are now performing like first-round picks. You get the gist. So we've got two different reports, one a bit more specific about what the Sabres might be having to give up if they were to trade for such a player. Let me take my time and just sort of lay this all out. Lines are open if you have a thought on this, if you're familiar with this player. I have a feeling a lot of casual hockey fans are turning on their radio going, who's this? Who? The Blues have a guy that's good? Because they're mired in last place in their division, not having a very good season. But Robert Thomas is fresh off back-to-back 80-point seasons for the Blues. He's an excellent player. The reason I haven't really thought of him as an idea for the Sabres is it seems to me like they have settled in pretty comfortably to the idea of Tage Thompson playing center for them again, which was necessitated by the Kulich injury and the Josh Norris injury. And you've got Josh Norris back and healthy now. And so another number one center. Norris and Thomas, to me, are very comparable players. I could try to split hairs about one skating versus the other or whatever, but on paper, they both read like very good 200-foot players. Great point of game type scorer. That's what Thomas has been the last 2 years. Norris has never really reached a point per game in an 80-game season because he's hardly ever, if ever, played 80 games in a season. He's constantly hurt. And that's where I think things could get interesting for me as it pertains to the Sabres. I do not think that they are going to find someone to take Josh Norris's contract, nor do I think they're actively trying to move him as part of this. This is guesswork on my part. But what I think would make sense for the Sabres, and I've been on this track with Norris as a player since last year's trade deadline when the Sabres acquired him, because he was clearly the better player of the principals. I'm not going to get into talking about fringe defenseman Bernard Docker and whatever, right? Norris for Cousins. I know the Sabres had to sweeten the pot, and the reason they had to sweeten the pot was not to get Bernard Docker, but to get Ottawa to move the better player, which is Norris. Why did they want to do that? Why did they want to move a better center, a better 200-foot player, as they were poised to go to the playoffs last year? This is Ottawa, again, I'm talking about at last year's deadline dealing with Buffalo. Well, they wanted, I think, certainty, as much certainty as you can have. Of course, anyone can get hurt. But Norris had been in the system there for many years and had missed multiple games every season he was there, including last year. You've seen that play out again here in Buffalo. I thought part of Ottawa's motivation was at least we'll have Dylan Cousins. He's durable. He plays them all. No, he's not going to produce even at his ceiling. His best year here was like a 60-point year. He is not going to be a point-a-game player, but he's going to compete, and he's going to be in the lineup, and we can continue to kind of move forward with our team with him in that spot. And if you're planning on Josh Norris occupying one of those spots and you're Ottawa and he gets hurt again, like he did soon after he got to Buffalo, then, where are you? You're down a number one center, and you're trying to go compete in the playoffs. Where I think this could get interesting for the Sabres, and I didn't see the whole field until an hour ago when it was mentioned that the Sabres are thought to be in pursuit. I don't want to throw in hot pursuit because I don't know that it's hot pursuit. I just know some big reporters are tweeting about it. But I don't want to give you the impression that this is like about to be nudged over the finish line or anything. But there certainly is smoke here. A reason the Sabres could be looking to add another top-line center to go with Josh Norris and Tage Thompson is Josh Norris insurance. If they can afford it, which they can, they don't have the room without doing anything to their roster, but I'm sure, a deal of this magnitude, you can stash some money away, put Greenway on long-term injury, whatever. There's ways that they can create enough room to make the deal. And what I'm thinking is that perhaps the Sabres are they're in a very similar position that Ottawa was in last year. Ottawa was not in second place in the division at the time. They didn't look as much of a contender as the Sabres have looked for the last couple of months. But the Sabres could be interested in purchasing some Josh Norris insurance because they have, I think, in a conference that I think is very wide open to them. I mean, I think Tampa and Carolina are clearly teams that historically and even this year, I would say outrank them. Pedigree-wise, expectation-wise, they should be ahead of the Sabres on any list of Stanley Cup odds. I think the rest of the conference is freaking wide open. And I'm not even here to say that the Sabres can't handle Carolina or Tampa. It's just that those are the only two teams, I think, in the entire conference that on paper right now, objectively, you would go, okay, that would be an upset. I think the Sabres beating any other team in the playoff pool, teams that are in right now or teams that are on the outside looking in that could still get in, I don't think I would classify the way this season has gone those as an upset. So the Sabres have an opportunity here to do more than just end a 14-season playoff drought. They have an opportunity to win a round or more in the Eastern Conference this year. And if you're counting on Josh Norris to hold down one of your center spots, and at any point between here and, I don't know, the finish line of the regular season, once the playoffs begin, something happens to Norris, which frequently occurs, where are you? You are down like a true dynamic 200-foot all-around. So you're down a number one caliber center. And boy, as well as the Sabres have done this year, at times without Norris in the lineup, I just think it's really hard for me to make the same case that they can beat anybody in the conference if they are down to Tage Thompson, Ryan McLeod, Tyson Kozak, and like some other trade idea, right? You get Robert Thomas on your team and something happens to Norris, well, you're all set. If you get Robert Thomas on your team and you still have Josh Norris on your team, that requires some shuffling. I don't know what they would be of the mind to do. It seems pretty clear at this point, the way the season has gone, that Tage Thompson really likes playing center ice, but could he like playing on the wing with either Josh Norris or Robert Thomas on a team that is now that much better, that much more poised to make some noise in the playoffs? Maybe he would. I think if you had all three of those players on your team, that is the most natural idea to me. I don't know how Thompson would feel about that. I don't know how internally they feel about that, or if this even is entering into their thinking. Maybe they're just like, we're just going to play all three of these guys at center, and Ryan McLeod will be our fourth line center, and we're building a wagon. I mean, that could be. But if you're thinking of those three players, the centers, Thompson, Norris, and Thomas, if you were to trade for him, as top six players, I mean, there's only two lines to go around, so someone's playing the wing, and my money would be on Tage if it does come to that. I wouldn't want to out of hand rule out the idea that they could be doing what Ottawa did last year and trying to swap Norris for Thomas. I mean, the Sabres did it, knowing Norris's reputation, being a team that was not poised to be a playoff team. So maybe the Blues could be enticed to do that, but I kind of doubt it. I think it's probably more about futures for them. Again, there probably is some money if the Sabres were to make a deal here. There's probably some money from your NHL roster going back there just to make it all work. But I don't think it's a situation where you're swapping like Ottawa did last year, where you're swapping Norris for Cousins. In this case, it would be swapping Norris for Robert Thomas. That could be it. I just kind of doubt it. I like the idea of Thomas more as insurance, like I've already said, if something were to happen to Norris. If Norris is healthy and rides through the spring and into the playoffs, you're that much better off as a team. With those three guys, if one of them's playing wing, so be it, in your top six. I mean, that's a stacked center lineup, and gives you another guy, again, if injury is to happen. So I like it from that standpoint. One other piece, because what I think you often, 8030550, you want to talk about this idea here, Robert Thomas, St. Louis Blues, 80-point-a-year scorer, good 200-foot player, that this is what we're talking about today. I know it might be jarring. This all come at you pretty fast. The Sabres are good again. They're in a playoff spot. We're talking about them winning rounds. One of the assistant captains is talking about not just trying to play in the playoffs, but winning the cup. I know it's a while ago now, but Alex Tuck did say that a month ago or so. And now we're a few days before the trade deadline, and we're talking about acquiring an $8 million center. It's a lot, I know, right? And I'm talking fast because I'm excited, because this is an exciting idea to me. Almost always, when you have a trade involving this caliber of player, you often end up in a spot where you are going to have to give up something you don't really want to, right? Something's going to hurt, right? I highly doubt that you are going to be able to make this trade by shipping off Isaac Rozan and Jack Quinn, who's on your NHL team right now. Rozan is not. And a couple of other pieces that could equate to being first-round caliber type players. It could happen, but I just sort of doubt it. There's a special category for like a guy like Helenus, I think. Like that would hurt to give him up, but I think I could do it. What would really hurt is if you're dipping into what I've described as this team's superpower, which is those top 4D. If the Blues want someone off of that back end, say they want Owen Power, that would hurt. I don't think the Sabres have an in-house ready-made replacement for a player that's playing the way any of those top 4D are, and that would hurt. The next page of that, to me, becomes, are you talking with the Blues about more than just Robert Thomas? Because Justin Falk, while 34 years of age, has been an excellent top 4 defenseman, power play guy, puck mover, solid defensively. He's been a very good NHL defenseman for most of his career. I'm not crazy about $6.5 million for him at the age of 34, but if in the overall you're thinking we're not going to be able to keep these top 4D together forever, is there an idea out there that plugs a hole we create by trading one of those top 4D, still getting us Robert Thomas, and filling the void left by, again, I said Power. I don't love this idea. I'm just wondering if it's something they could be thinking about, like a bigger deal that nets you a replacement for a top 4D and also this top flight centerman in Robert Thomas. Not knowing like what their goals are, I'm reluctant to do anything that involves touching those top 4D, but I wonder just how tempting that idea, the bigger trade to get a replacement for one of those top 4D. Look, to me, there's a drop-off there with the age that Falk is at right now, and asking him to play the kind of minutes that those top 4 have been playing here would be very risky to me. But I wonder if in the overall, the Sabres could look at their team and say, for right now, we're better, and in the long run, keeping those 4D. I mean, it's nice that Samuelson's on the contract he's on, and Byram, too, for that matter. That's a short-term deal for not the big money. Really, Dahlin and Power are the two whales back there, money-wise. I don't I like much more the idea of putting a package together for Robert Thomas, and whatever that costs me that doesn't include one of those D, I think I love that idea. I'm not sure I would really need to sit with it. I would really need to think about it. if it were the bigger deal that I just got to there that involved the defenseman coming in and the defenseman going out. To me, that's risky, because the thing to me that the Sabres should be, I mean, there's a lot of sentiment out there. It ain't broke kind of thing, right? Like, why do you want to? I heard Elliot Friedman on a podcast that I saw it today. I don't know if it was from today, saying, like, why mess around with it, right? You've got a good thing going. I mostly would say that, I mean, I would shout that from a rooftop about those top 4D. I think the forward ranks, yes, it's working fine, but I think if you can add someone like Robert Thomas without disturbing that core of defensemen, I think you're making your team better, and by a lot. So I like that a lot. The bigger deal, disturbing that superpower, as I've coined it, that the Sabres have, not as crazy about that idea. 803-0550 is the number. Love to hear from y'all. Evan is first up this segment. Hi, Evan. Thank you for calling. You're on WGR.
Hi, how's it going?
Great.
I wanted to just highlight, I feel like kind of some of the conversation was like talking about Thomas being there kind of as like a Norris insurance. And I feel like Thomas as a player is almost double the player Norris is. I love Josh Norris, but everything Robert Thomas does is just elite. I feel like that's one of the best 200-foot players in the league. And I feel like if there's any way to get him, it'd be huge.
Yeah, well, the reason I'm saying it's insurance is because if they're counting on Norris, they could use another guy that can do. I'm not telling you Norris is the better player. I'm just saying I've got Norris. That's why I phrase it that way, as insurance. That I've got another guy in case something happens to him, is why I put it that way. No argument. Just from a durability standpoint, therefore the production has outpaced what Norris has done recently, really ever. Norris has never had a point-a-game season. He's never played 80 games. So, he outranks Norris. Don't get hung up on the insurance is merely because, I've got a guy here and I'm trying to protect myself against something happening to him that could really kind of ruin all this. Like, counting on Norris just feels kind of flimsy to me, because I just don't know if I can trust it yet. We've not really seen him play, even 20 games in a row for the Sabres. I mean, he got here last year, got hurt after 3 games. Opened the season healthy, hurt in the first game. Comes back, it's okay, playing a chunk of games. It was 19 games. Funny enough, I said he's never even played 20 games in a row. 19 games, and then out again. Now he's back. So I think the idea of having something else. I know insurance sounds like I'm downgrading what Thomas is, and I don't mean to do that at all. I think he's an excellent player and is every bit and more, because of his health, the player that Norris is. It just gives me another option there if I need it. 803-0550 is the phone number if you'd like to get in on the conversation. There's some rumors about the Sabres being in the trade market aggressively for one of, if not the biggest name left on the market, center Robert Thomas from the Blues. That is what we're talking about to lead things off. Mike is out today. I'm the Bulldog, and you're listening to W.